Yo, what's going on, guys? Apex the Entertainer here. Prepare to be ridiculously entertained. We are talking Goblins. Oh, by the way, did you think I was gone? What? Would you thought Apex wasn't here anymore? Did you cry about it? Were you crying? Get a grip. All right, we're talking Goblin and token meta. Wipe those tears, kids. We got work to do. They have a few key mechanics that I want to introduce to you guys. First and foremost, the mechanic I think will be the least important to address currently, although I do think it has potential at some point, is confusion. The next time I attack, deal half my damage to a random ally first. So it's some sort of scam integration. Never hurts to have that because scam's a little fewer and farther between than it used to be. So when this is summoned, you proc it on an enemy, it would then damage a fellow ally when it attacks immediately. That also does combine fairly well with poison, but we'll dig into that deeper in just a moment. Second, we'll talk about what's called the heckle mechanic. So heckle is before an enemy attacks X times, do something. So obviously the core idea here, same concept, right? Whenever you are attacked, you're generating a proc on that ability, which means multi-summon's really big, because the more times you can make sure this guy survives while you're being attacked, the more you can proc his ability, and there are quite a few heckle units that I think could be important, possibly. I'm not sure. I think this is, once again, following up the confusion, I think this is probably the least of your worries when it comes to the upcoming meta, although I do think it integrates well with multi-summon, so we'll see. It might actually be something where you have heckle boosters that are important to utilize with other key factions like ninjas or undead. On to the next one, traps. Traps as a whole are going to be a very key mechanic, though I'm torn because this is where it gets interesting. I don't know if trap is going to be more meta than poison. Now, they work kind of interchangeably, but you absolutely, by the end of the game, you kind of fixate on one, either multi-summon in combination with poison or traps in combination with poison. And which one's better, I'm not sure. That being said, Goblins already are some of the best multi-summoners. You can tell right from the get-go if you've been playing at all. So innately, they're kind of going to work together. There are a few kind of traps. The first one I'll show you here is the Flinger Trap. Death, your strongest Goblin deals half of its damage to an enemy. Going to work pretty well with poison. So that's going to be pretty good. I'm more focused on the poison aspect than the trap aspect. So I'm not going to be very excited to deep dive on traps with you, though I do know that Viper, I don't know if this is what he posted in this video, but he's already done quite well with traps. I believe he was getting his tumbler traps up to 2,800 or something like that, which, speak of the devil, let's talk about tumbler traps. Death, deal 2 damage to an enemy and improve this by 2 damage everywhere. So cumulative stats, always very interesting to me, right? There is some exponential value here. In my opinion, not quite so much as poison. So again, I'm still more interested on the poison aspect, but there's definitely something that can be done with traps as far as tumbler trap specifically goes. And that being said, the only trap your boy cares about, the one that matters to me, where'd that go? Right here. Toxic Trap. Death, give poison to an enemy, then deal 5 damage to it. That part's very important because let's just do it. Let's just hop into the poison mechanic. So after this unit is damaged, it then takes damage equal to the total damage it received this combat. Now, when we get into the gameplay, I'll expand on that a little bit more. But the core concept is you want lots of hits in combination with some baseline damage, right? So if you deal 2,000 damage to a unit, and then it gets hit by a toxic trap, not only is it poisoned, but then it's immediately hit with 5 damage plus the 2,000 or 200, whatever I just said, the 200 damage that you just dealt to it, right? So that means that there is a lot of exponential scaling here. And it also means that the math favors more hits, way more than more baseline damage, which I will show you. I nerded out just a little bit when it came to this mechanic. I'll show you guys a little infographic so you can get an idea. You're really coming to class today. I don't know if you knew, but you're getting a PhD in poison, let me tell you. I'm just going to talk about some of the key units that you're going to see in the upcoming gameplay. First and foremost, ultimately what I think is the far and away the most important chase card is going to be prize-winning Shroomer. Summon a Toxic Trap with Taunt and Revive. So one of the key things that they're integrating into Gauntlet and Clan Wars is going to be a spell that doubles all of your death effects. So as you can expect, if you get him legendary, you summon a Golden Toxic Trap, which a Golden Toxic Trap hits 2 of the opposing units with poison and then damages them. And then they revive and they reproc again. He's a very, very easy way for you to just basically poison the entire opposite team, which is the primary focus. Is just get poison out with the fewest units needed as possible amongst the entire team, and then just hit them a bunch. Other units worth mentioning as far as my route right now, again, I'm not going to be talking about trap mechanics, which ramping Dodo, of course, is very important for trap mechanics. Let's see, obviously Wheezing Convoy, anything that can generate more of a particular common faction, like faction, is always going to be of utmost importance, so that's going to be one of your chase cards early. And then I think the only other one really worth talking about, because to be honest, the low tier units kind of suck. There's some trap and poison integration that's semi-interesting. But the only other one worth noting is Ghast Fumigator. Attack, give poison to my target, so it gets you one more poison proc in case you need it. The goal here is to not need it. And then Death, deal half of my damage to enemies with poisoned. So in my personal experience, the best route that I could take was have one substantially sized unit, if all goes well, right? And that's kind of by the wayside. Deal that damage to as many units as possible, make sure they all have poisoned, make sure this guy dies, and then just make sure there's a ton of multi-summons. Now, that might be too many moving parts, and that might not be the right way to play it, but that's what I did for this particular game, and it went pretty damn well. Interesting, I don't know if it's worth a space, but I did use it because, again, I knew I couldn't get enough multi-summons, so I focused a little more on the base damage. But keep in mind, essentially every single time you get an additional one single summon, you're doubling whatever the initial base damage was. So again, I know that's a lot to take in without kind of seeing it in action. You guys will both see it in action along with a little bit more explanation in just a moment when we see the gameplay. I just want to make sure we're on the same page about how ridiculously synergistic so many units and factions are with goblins, right? Anything multi-summon based, of course, ninjas, undead, those are going to be the ones that come out and I focus on right from the get-go. But Mimi Sprocket, she's also got a lot of useful multi-summons. Any multi-summon is going to be huge. In my circumstance, what I was most interested in, funny enough, a card that I didn't think I would ever care about this much, Spider Mama. Now, Spider Mama, once she's golden, will fill your board with spiders that have revive in every slot. And we have a very, very important new relic, which is going to be kickstart, give barrier and stealth to your back right unit. So I was able to get a golden legendary Spider Mama sitting in my back right corner, which is essentially guaranteed to summon 12 units, depending on when she gets hit, right? It all depends. But most of my stuff is supposed to die on the board anyway, so it's pretty easy to make sure you have enough space for that moment when she does get killed. So that's a really big deal. There's all sorts, I mean, they have ridiculous relics, and they also combine very well with other multi-summon factions. So I think ninjas and undead are naturally getting a very hefty buff because you can throw poison in later with either of those factions, and still it's a huge add-on, right? If you have an entire ninja or undead build and you just throw in a couple of poison whenever you can proc it, it's still ridiculous. You don't need to fully invest every space on your board into ninjas or undead anymore, because goblins being in are always going to help you. And Spider Mama sits in the bottom right corner. I make sure everybody has poison. I make sure they've taken some damage, and we go from there. Alrighty, folks, let's hop into some goblin gameplay. You will notice along the bottom right there, I do have the infographic for the poison mechanic explained. As I told you, I'm making sure you get only the most pristine content. Look at that. Look at the level of precision. So you'll notice primarily what it's showing you is that the primer is less important than the multi-hit. The primer representing the initial base damage that you hit with, right? Which I think I had the wrong idea. You'll notice I have that T4 start of turn effect goblin that I mentioned in the top middle. I think that would be much better replaced by something that multi-summons or Torero. Torero is going to go insanely hard with poison, right? Because Torero, not only does he deal back a large amount of damage, potentially, right? Depending on what you're getting hit by, he also initially tanks the hit and still deals some sort of damage to whatever just hit him. So he can proc your poison and he deals strong base damage to a particular unit. So I think Torero is going to be an extremely strong integration with goblins. If you take 90% of that primer away, meaning all you were able to deal was 200 damage to a unit, but you can hit it 8 more times, it's an astronomical change. It's 26 times higher. So the short story is, if you're going to learn anything from this, it's that multi-summon is much more important than any sort of scaling. We are pushed way out of the scaling meta. All right, let's hop on into it. So at this point, you guys can see I kind of have the golden setup already. It is worth noting I do have the double damage spell. So essentially those position 1 and position 3 goblins are spitting out, depending on when they die, spitting out hopefully 2 traps that give poison. And when those poisons die, of course, their death effect is doubled as well. So then they give 2 units poison and they deal damage to both of them. Spider Mom in the back right. I do also have, again, a lot of the key relics. One that's very important that I haven't mentioned yet is the tier 5 relic, which kills your position 1 unit, which of course would proc its death ability, and then it resummons it when you have space, which makes for just outrageous numbers, right? Because it's so easy for me to put poison across the whole board. Man, unfortunately, spoiler alert, we never freaking see how much damage Spider Mama can do, because I never get to the point where everybody survives long enough to see that happen, because my position 4 unit is dealing his damage across the board to all of these poison units that have already taken a decent amount of cumulative damage, right? So it doesn't look very exciting, right, until you see him die, and then it gets ridiculous, right? So right there, he procs it twice, and immediately he essentially wipes the entire board. And if somehow that person did survive, they still have 12 units to get through that are continuously accumulating that poison damage. Just bonkers. Okay, so again, I'm getting rid of the hecklers. Scaling as a whole, I think things like elves and it's another good example. So pirates and dwarves and stuff like that, kickstarts are still going to be, they're still going to have some potential. But stat heavy units, so demons, elves, I don't know, maybe even kickstarts, stuff like Nords are going to struggle too. But demons and elves are going to be damn near useless, just so you know. Elves already got hit pretty hard. I will do a full meta breakdown coming up soon, by the way. Just so that you guys get a gauge on what I've thought of the overhaul as a whole, because I really have not gotten a chance to talk about that. I did make one where I was gonna talk about some of the complaints that you guys were dealing with and presenting and some of my thoughts. But when I went to post it, it corrupted, and I was like, huh, that's probably a sign. So we'll discuss that at a later time. So as it stands, I really just focused on finding a golden spider mama, and that's pretty much it. I really think that at this point, I didn't have the right mentality of looking for more multi-summon. That's all I needed, right? I needed a golden spider mama, and I needed to find lots of multi-summon, and probably a Torero, which I actually think I freaking skip a Torero in this game, which is ridiculous because it would have been so phenomenal against specifically a dwarf build like this, where you can ensure that that base damage that's reflected is very high initially. Sitting at 1 health for the entirety of these games, by the way. So we were playing a little bit of risky business, let me tell you. Go get my beverage that's non-alcoholic. Okay. So again, looking a little scary, right? You get scared? Don't get scared, okay? Don't get scared. We got this covered. You can see it just gets egregious with the double death effect, the resummon of your position 1 unit, and the stealth and barrier on your position 6 unit. I mean, that's just stupid. Basically, they've set it up so that the meta as a whole is just like giving goblins a sweet, sweet kiss because everything is catered to goblins, which appears to be something they're going to utilize to kind of incentivize the pay-to-win packs. Which, again, I'm not going to tackle here, but I can tell you, if you ever see a legendary that I do have and you don't have, you need to voice it. You should comment on my video and say that you're very mad about it. And then just to really drill it, just take that negative energy and just hit that like button, and then also subscribe, of course, to really, really reflect the frustration. Point being, there's things that people are understandably frustrated about that I won't tackle here, but you can expect that either in my next video with my tier list or a follow-up video. So now we've got that guy tripled. He's spitting out golden toxic traps, which are now when they proc hitting 4 of the opponents. So poison is something that I don't need to remotely think about. Now I just need to think about how can I proc multi-hits, right? At this point, both of those start of turn units, in my opinion, should have been gone. I could have easily found better options for multi-summon. I was kind of considering Scarlet Ruse, but I didn't have any, any route to efficiently get there. I mean, I did have that T4 with the ambush, but it wouldn't have been the right call. But regardless, at this point, it is working. I left a space open because I knew that my front left unit is going to die, right? That's something to keep in mind if you are going to play around that T5 relic that goblins have, is make sure that you leave available space if hitting that poison proc is important enough. And that's not always going to be the case, right? Positioning's not great here. I don't know why I sat that second unit. Oh no, I guess that was just when I had free space. Still not great positioning in my opinion though. In fact, that start of turn unit shouldn't even be there. I mean, that's just a complete waste of space. I'm missing multiple hit procs and multi-summon options. So there we go. They were all at roughly about 2,000 health, dealing buku damages, 1,300 on that last proc. And again, we have 12 units, 12 attacks just sitting in the bottom right corner. So the potential is diabolical. Shout out to friggin' No Mercy, whoever that player is. I hope you're watching, dude. Do your gauntlets, man. I want to show my wonderful, wonderful viewers what kind of maximum possibilities they are with this build. But enough of the yap. Pretty cut and dry from here, right? 4K unit sitting at the top middle. Lots of multi-hits. I'm considering the Siffy, which I think there's definitely some sort of build here. And that's kind of the point, right? If you look at the current Goblin build, if you took out that position 2 and 3 unit entirely, right, and you just added more multi-summons, unquestionably, it would be better. You just need as many summons as you can get. That's all this is. Okay, so they're still sitting around 2K. This is the final fight. Just a stupid... This is so ridiculous. Like, it's so crazy how well all the other mechanics cater to the death effects of goblins. I mean, this is just going to be so ridiculously busted. So again, just so you guys know, if you don't, that left side of the mechanic explain thing that you see at the bottom right of your screen, that's specifically reflecting this situation, right? A base damage of, I said roughly about 2K because there's some variables to consider there, but possibly 12 procs via my Spider Mama, and that's the potential damage. It's like 8 million damage. This is crazy. This is insane. Poison is absolutely ridiculous, right? If you take just the raw math of what I would deal, well, that number is evenly split, by the way, assuming you didn't hit the same unit every time. So if you spread the love with the poison, that's 40,000 damage that I had sitting in that Spider Mama. So whether you guys got to see it or not, that is the math. I've done that ahead of time. So 40,000 damage evenly dispersed amongst the opponent's board after everything else I have dies. That is so ridiculous. I just can't wait. So keep an eye out. I am going to put out that meta tier list will be my next thing to talk about the overhaul as a whole, give my input on the current status of the game, where the potential lies for this upcoming meta, and what I've seen from the previous 2 seasons, because I did end up at 13th for season 1, and I think I was like 39th for season 2, but we're doing top 10 this season without question. Alrighty, folks. That's Goblins. I'm super, super excited to show you guys more Goblin content along with all my ridiculous multi-summon builds. Again, please hit like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Voice your opinions, good or bad. I want to hear them. All right, I love you guys. Appreciate you being here. Bye-bye.